Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 158 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And if my voice sounds clearer again, it's because I'm back at my home studio. No longer on the, we're ending the Slaycation. I'm ending it just like I am my summer vacation here. And we're back at the apartment, back in Amityville. But I still got my pumpkin in hand. And
oh, nice. See, you're starting on the pumpkin beers with a lot more gusto than I have, although I did have a really good one that I texted you about, Brian, and that was Noda Brewery. I can't remember where they're out of, but they have one called Gorgeous.
Oh, wow. I like the pun name, too. That's good, right?
Yeah, it was really, really good because, and it was expensive. I mean, I think it was like $13 for a 4-pack.
Yeah.
But when you're going to pay that, if you're paying that for a 4-pack, that beer's going to be good. You know it's going to be good. And this one absolutely lived up to that. It's a good pumpkin beer, or a more top-tier pumpkin beer, to me, kind of does away with the gimmicky spices and sweetness. I think you can always tell when it's got like real pumpkin in it. And this one has that real pumpkin flavor. It's kind of got a roasted darkness to it.
I like that.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was really, really one of the better pumpkin beers I've had in a couple of years, I'd say. So I'm going to definitely put that one on my list as a go-to.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, and I have to say, so we've usually been in agreement that pumpkin is usually our go-to, and it's our number one pumpkin beer. I have to say, what's closing in for me, it's definitely not. Still, pumpkin is still the best, and I've had this before, but I'm telling you, this Montauk Brewing Company, Montauk Pumpkin that they make every year is really good. I had it. I posted a picture of having it like outside. It's a great way to end the summer, but with heading into a fall, but with a really good pumpkin beer like a Montauk, because it's a good ale. But it's just they just have a really good flavor to it. So that's one I gotta get a hold on. I gotta get you some of that. You need to try that one, because I think that way you would really like that. And we actually, when we were at Costco earlier, we picked up some more pumpkin, because that whole big pallet that Julie saw was diminished to like a small little section. So we grabbed 2 more 4-packs just to be safe. And another one I've had, which I think I sent a picture of also, was it's from this North Fork Brewing Company that was out in Riverhead, New York, which was like getting us through the summer. Literally, I was going over there, and they do great. They've been doing curbside pickups where they're awesome. And it was funny, the last time I ordered it, when I ordered this last batch, because they had this papaya guava double IPA that they made, and then they had this coffee stout that I wanted to get, and then of course their 2 ones they call Butternut the Hut, which it's just like looks like Jabba the Hutt as a squash, like on the front there. But that's basically their version of that. I don't think they do a true like a pumpkin named ale. It's like to the gourd family they use, but they use this this local squash for it, which is really good. So it's a butternut squash ale with the seasonal spices in it, and that's like a 5.7% one. But then on top of that, they also had the Imperial version of that, which actually, wow, I didn't realize I spent that much on it. That's like $20 for a 4-pack, but
wow.
It's an Imperial Spiced Ale, and it's the same one, but they call it the Squash Strikes Back. But what it is it's aged in a local bourbon barrel for 11 months, so it's that one.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, and that one it's strong. I mean, that one's 8.7%, although it seems a lot stronger when you have it, so it's pretty good. So I've been like really getting into my full beers. I have actually Julie picked me up the other day some pumpkin nitro. So I have that to look forward to. I got to get those in there. So listen, if we're going to not be able to get to our haunts, and we're not getting to our Halloween Horror Nights and such, and our conventions, I'm going to pumpkin it up as much as I can in beer. I'm telling you.
We still need to do we need to do a Zoom, like a happy hour for sure. Mm-hmm. And we could all bring our pumpkin beers.
Yes.
Also, I looked up.
We're definitely doing that.
I also looked up that Noda Brewing Company's out of Charlotte, so it's a local North Carolina beer, and they have a really nice brewery. I'm looking at photos here.
And get
so
my
I'm
friend Kara over to go over there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to visit it next time I go visit my dad.
Yeah.
Actually, we're thinking of going up there and doing a camping trip.
Oh, nice.
Towards the end of September, possibly, because that's a good social distance type vacation we could take just to get out of town, and I thought that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of do what you can these days in terms of vacation. I mean,
yeah,
really
I'm just so ready to get out of town. I feel like I've been trapped, and it's so weird that October's almost here as we're our final week of Summer Slaycation, because like in my mind it almost kind of feels like, although this year has seemed like an eternity, at the same time it also seems like March was just yesterday when we went into quarantine.
Yeah,
so it's really playing games with my time perception.
Well, because nothing changed, because that was the thing. It's like, yes, things opened up again, but like, most of the people stayed what they were doing. So it's like, I know you and I really didn't go to theme parks. We really didn't do anything. So, for me, the one thing that changed was that's why Julie and I went over to the beach house. We wanted to at least have some semblance of a summer. And so we're like, well, we're both working remote. Why are we here at the apartment when we could go there? So we just almost did a mini move. And, like I said, we just came back. We might go up for weekends on occasion. So it'll be kind of fun though. So, but it's like, so it's like, I'm like, we're kind of like the seasons all seem to blend, but I am kind of excited. Did you saw that thing I sent you, right? With that funny family, the Holderness family, where she's getting all excited for fall. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, that's like, is it wrong that Tim and I should associate with a housewife that on social media like that?
Yeah, I'm totally, man. I'm totally going to turn into fall guy.
Yeah, well, I'm
fall man or whatever they call him.
Yeah, Mr. Autumn. Yeah, well, I'm going to order that too. A lot of pumpkin coffee this year. Like there's that Nespresso I saw now has their own pumpkin spice, like little Nespresso pods. So I'm definitely going to order that.
I think I'm going to finally order some Bones coffee because I've got two of
I want to order
those nice mugs. And I love their mugs, but I've never actually ordered their coffee. So they have a great pumpkin coffee called Jacked O'Lantern, which I have the mug of.
Oh,
you guys have seen on Instagram. I want to try that. So
yeah, I got to try their coffee too. And plus, I have that new mug too from that I don't think I talked about. I think I posted on Instagram, but I don't know if I talked to it on the podcast. My Silver Shamrock mug from Ghost Girl Greetings.
Oh yeah.
Which I love, and that's like that basically was I was like, you know what? I want my own mug out here. While I'm out at the beach. So I ordered that, and that was my mug every day. I used it. I had my coffee. Now here I'll alternate a little bit. I'll, alternate with my Silgor mug, and other times with, maybe I'll make one for coffee, one for tea. It's like I'll designate the mugs.
There you go. You have to have a reason. Tea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so no first chop, guys. That was kind of our first chop in a way, talking about beer and pumpkins, but we didn't really have anything to put in the first chop, so we decided since we're doing 3 movies this week, we'll just kind of jump right into it. So we are looking at the final 3 films, at least for now, in the Final Destination series. That would be Final Destination 3, the stupidly named The Final Destination, which was part 4, and then Final Destination 5. And Brian, I was surprised when I went to watch Final Destination 5 and realized I had not seen it.
Wow.
Which means I believe this is the first Summer Slaycation in which there was at least one movie from each franchise that I had not seen that we watched.
We picked that well then. This is good for you.
So that was really kind of a neat thing to realize. So let's get started with Final Destination 3. This was 2006. James Wong returns as director. Of course, he was the original director of the original Final Destination. Stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Wendy Christensen, Ryan Merriman as Kevin Fisher, Chris Lemche as Ian McKinley, Alex Johnson as Aaron, Sam Easton as Frankie Cheeks, Jesse Moss as Jason Wise, Gina Holden as Carrie Dreyer, Texas Battle.
That's a second Texas Battle sighting this year in our Summer Slaycation, you realize.
That's a cool name. Louis Romero, Shalon Simmons as Ashley Freund, Jan K. Crystal Lowe as Ashlyn Halperin, Amanda Crew as Julie Christensen, Maggie Ma as Perry, Anastasia Sanders as Amber, and Jodie Racicot, hopefully I said that right, as Bloodworth.
Oh, by the way, real quick, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add something. So that is also the second team up we've had with Texas Battle and, here she's Yan K. Crystal Lowe, but she was just Crystal Lowe in Final Destination 2. I'm sorry, in Wrong Turn 2. So they were both in the same movie together and in this one too. So there's a little Summer
cool.
Slaycation Civil Gore / bonus trivia for you all.
A student's premonition of a deadly roller coaster ride saves her life and a lucky few, but not from death itself, which seeks out those who escape their fate. And Brian and I, there's no secret, we love this one because of the opening death sequence in which a roller coaster derails, which I don't know about you, Brian, but due to this movie, and maybe even before this movie, that's something I've always thought about. What if it happened? Like, what if this thing just goes off the rails? Especially when I'm riding Voyage at Holiday World.
That thing does go off the rails. I don't know who's kidding you. We know that goes off the rails. It magically gets back on because it's that awesome. But
you just think, what would happen if I just flew out of this thing? Or what if this restraint just broke? I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but there's always this thing in the back of your mind, and I love that because I loved watching this play out in this movie, and I just love the whole amusement. Like, if you set any scene in a carnival or a fair or an amusement park, I'm like in instantly. I'm sucked in.
Yeah,
like that's all you have to do.
Well, I will say two things. One, it actually was the movie Roller Coaster for me, from that opening sequence in that movie where I first put the idea in my head that, hey, roller coasters could possibly go off the track.
Yeah.
But of course, that one is like, this man caused. But still, this one, but I actually did have a situation where I felt unsafe on a roller coaster only once. I think I told that story, and that was at that Steel Pier thing across from the formerly Taj Mahal and now Hard Rock Casino and Showboat. Remember, I pointed it out to you when we were there, but it was, I think, the older version of that coaster. But there was a coaster there, and when my friend Mark and I got on it, the bar really wasn't coming down. I mean, it was a Wild Mouse style coaster. So, those are meant to kind of give you more the illusion that you're going to kind of go off the edge of the rail anyway. But with this one, like, literally the bar was not coming down. I mean, I think, I don't even remember if there was a seatbelt. I just know the bar was really loose. And Mark was like saying something to the guy as we started to go. He's like, this isn't really going down. And he just started laughing at us. So I'm like, okay, interesting. But I mean, like, I know from at that point, I've been on enough roller coasters. I'm like, okay, the physics are not going to allow us necessarily to fall out here. But didn't stop me from holding on maybe a little tighter and not putting my hands up in a rare time on the roller coaster. But Mark was so terrified that he gripped so tightly that he actually sprained his wrist. When we got off, I saw his wrist was a little swollen. But yeah, I mean, in reality, I think it's just one of those things where it's one of those overly loose restraint systems. Now there's many coasters we've both been on, you see that from time to time. But most of the time they have a seatbelt backup with it. I just don't think this had a seatbelt backup, which is what was odd. But then again, I mean, we've been on the Phoenix where we know that one. It's like that thing feels like those buckle. Oh my God, that thing hardly clamps you at all, right? And there's no seatbelt on that either, I don't think, right?
No. And as Dan famously says, it's the world's only stand-up wooden roller coaster.
Right, yeah. So
because you literally are standing up most of the ride from the airtime.
Yeah, pretty much. And and we will say, seat 3, row 3, you have to be in row 3, and you never would have understood that until you've been on it. Because I'm like, row 3, people talk about front row, back row. Like, I'm usually a back row rider because I love the yank and the extra speed you feel like you're getting. But this one, I was like, but I've been in the front row and it's great. I've been in the back row, it's great. But I've been on row 3 and it's like ungodlike, it's like
magic.
It's crazy.
It's magic.
It's like, yeah. It's nuts.
So that was an instant hook for me. And, like we've said before, Brian and I both have the movie poster of this movie. That's how much we like it. And thanks to Coaster Radio, by the way.
And EB, ding.
EB, yep.
Because he was the one that sent that out in his snail mail club.
Oh, I was so excited when I got that poster.
I know, I love that
You can't
poster.
imagine.
It's a great poster, actually.
It really is. It's got all
really...
that. If you guys haven't seen it, look up the Final Destination 3 poster because it's got the people on the roller coaster, but some of them are skulls.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It's well done. That was a good design for that. Yeah, you know what? I like this one. Is actually, I mean, we'll get to it in my rankings where it is, but I mean, no surprise. It definitely is one of my favorites. Just because I think it kind of picks up where what 2 kind of left you feeling flat on. And obviously, it's because the director came back. this one kind of felt more like the first one again. You know, like everything I loved about the first one, I felt like this one had it. I mean, it added a little bit more to it, like almost like this could have been 2 at some level. The way they had advanced, I thought.
Yeah, this one was interesting because when I was thinking about it, it really is essentially just a remake of 1 in a way.
Yeah,
it just distills everything into, in my opinion, into just kind of a more fun package. So like, to me, the deaths were more fun. And I've seen rankings, because I went and looked at some rankings. The rankings are literally all over the place for this series. You will see people that have Final Destination 2 as the best in the series.
What?
You will have people that have Final Destination 3 as the worst in the series.
Okay.
I've seen every manner of ranking for this series. So when I give my ranking, I am not at all ashamed to rank it, because every person's ranking for the series is completely different. I even went out to a Reddit forum. I was just curious. I'd already done my ranking. I was just kind of curious. And it was just amazing.
Yeah, no, what I liked, there's just a lot of different things why I like these. And you'll see when I actually do my ranking for it. But this one was just something about it I loved because of the whole... I you know what it is? I think I mean, of course I love the roller coaster, but that's what I was going to say. As I think some people maybe... they have their ranking based off of that opening death. And I think that because it's been so iconic in the series that whatever that opening is, I think
that's what they remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they remember, because they remember, oh, that's the one where it opened with the roller coaster, or oh, that's the one that opens on the plane. You know, so I think that is a signature. I think how you like that first opening thing, or what your ranking of kind of fear is, maybe could be how you rank this movie. And I think that's very unique for a series, because it's a series that literally is the same movie 5 times over.
Pretty
if you
much,
think about it, just with a twist. And I think this one, what helped was, I think it had the, you know, since it had the original director and it had a heavyweight, like not in weight, in acting chops, in Mary Elizabeth Winstead, because I think she is incredible in all the movies that she's in. So to have her, such a big person in that, as the main girl in it, I think was huge too.
Well, I found for some reason, I just find the cast in this one just more likable in general than some of the other ones. And I don't really know why. I thought the cast in the first Final Destination was really good. I liked them. But I really like these guys too. And that goes a long way towards it. The roller coaster scene, obviously. But the thing I like the most about it when I was looking back on it is it's sort of like the original, but they didn't have to really create the mythos anymore because people were already familiar with it.
Right.
So they basically distilled the original down into just the fun elements. So just the deaths. It gets right to the point. There's no real need to educate the audience on what's going on. It's just flat out, straight up, you know, big kill death scene in the beginning, and then kills going on along the way, just like the first one, but you're already familiar with it. So I can understand why people put it towards the end, because it doesn't really bring anything new to the table, but I feel like it refined the formula to a point where it's just distilled down to its purest essence. And with James Wong coming back, you kind of had that authenticity of the first one, so it doesn't feel like a knockoff director trying to direct it. I don't know. I thought it was like I almost feel like this one should have been the first one.
Yeah, it definitely could have been. It could have been that, because they like you said, they kind of figure out the mythos organically. Like, you don't need to see the other ones to jump into this one. If this is the first one you see, this could easily... And I think that's actually what's interesting about the series, is literally you can catch on any one of them. And yet, even though it's a kind of a continuous storyline, it's still, you could watch any one of them and then be fine.
Well, in the trivia, they even said that this one was designed to be a standalone movie. So that's why it comes off that way. You could literally interchange this one with part 1 and still get the entire essence of the franchise. So I really, really like this one. And this one is probably the one that I've seen the most, and that always tends to flavor your rankings a bit. The movie you're most familiar with, you're probably going to rank a little higher.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason you've watched it so many times, right? If you hated it, you're probably not going to have watched it the most out of the franchise. So this one kind of naturally fell towards the top for me.
Yeah, and you know what I loved? I have to say, it's like, now you and I have been on countless roller coasters, and I know I haven't been on the roller coaster in the movie. It's definitely on my bucket list. I think it's at oh my god, Dan the t-shirt guy would be laughing at us right now because I can't remember. It's in Vancouver.
It's at Playland.
The Playland in Vancouver. I forget the actual name of it, but the thing is, they do an amazing job with the camera work to give the illusion of such height on that thing. It is not. I don't think it's that tall. Those style roller coasters, though, have always been felt higher than they are, because that's like a kind of like a similar to like American Scream Machine and stuff like that. But it like where there's like little thin tracks you're going up kind of thing, and they do such a good job of building the tension on it and giving you a simulation of what it's like to be going up a lift hill on a roller coaster. And I was like, wow, he nailed it. I don't know if he's a roller coaster fan or he got someone who's an expert to help him choreograph that scene. But from that buildup of starting to make that climb up the roller coaster lift hill in the beginning, and then looking down, and especially in the the fake out version of it, it's like you're like, whoa, that is like really, it's like if you're a big roller coaster fan, you get the feeling that like you kind of get into it right there, and that's what I was. I was kind of getting like the little like that fun, exciting feeling in my stomach, and then I'm like, oh crap, I'm not really riding this thing.
You know what else I like though? I always love in these when there's a theme park setting in a horror movie or any movie for that matter. They always build these elaborate sets that would never ever be that way in real life. Like this roller coaster has an enormous indoor queue. I'm like, there is no way in hell this roller coaster in real life would have an enormous indoor queue this way that's highly themed and all that. They just don't do it. I mean, it's totally unrealistic. But I love it because it kind of gives you like the fantasy version of what your perfect roller coaster would be. You would have this like with a devil mouth, and you'd have this huge queue with all these warning signs, and it would be all indoors, and it would be it's fun to see like these fantasy versions of these theme parks because they never really match reality, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, so bad news is it doesn't even exist. They closed it in 2018. We missed our chance to ride the Final Destination roller coaster.
Which they did say.
Oh, it said that in there?
No, which they did say in the trivia that they added elements with CGI to the actual roller coaster. So the actual roller coaster you see in the movie is a little more elaborate and has more loops and stuff than the actual.
Oh yeah, no, you could tell that's not. Yeah, it's literally just a kind of a corkscrew ride there. But but actually, it's funny the queue you said, the elaborate queue. It actually reminded me of the Batman and Robin the Chiller. That used to be Great Adventure because it was big. It was a big queue because it was a dual launched roller coaster, so they had two tracks inside. So it seemed that big in there, and it's like that. That's kind of what it was. But yes, it wasn't really super themed by any means. But yeah, it's unless you're at a Universal or Disney, you're not getting that kind of theming at a for a roller coaster. I mean, what I'm trying to think of one that's like at a regional park that has any kind of theming like that.
That's what was weird about this amusement park because we're gonna go on amusement parks.
I know,
Brian,
you had to expect us to go a little nerdy on this one. Come on,
but it's just funny because this was like a mix between like a county fair because they had like rides and like food stands and stuff right beside this enormous roller coaster. It was kind of a weird like juxtaposition of like something you rarely see in real life. Although I guess you could see it like it maybe like Coney Island had some of that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, they had it. Well, I mean, the Midway. I mean, there's that one little spot too at Kings Island. Even remember, there's that like Midway. Yeah, where the racer is. I mean, because there's a big wooden roller coaster in the background and a couple of the shots too in there. So it's definitely a real amusement park. They may have just like elaborated on some of the sequences there in terms of the midway and the set pieces, but I mean you kind of have to do that. I think it helped because it kind of gave it more of a claustrophobic feel the whole time. However, there was a funny point. Did you notice they technically had like whatever version at the time of a fast pass there, because remember they said, hey, our tickets are for this time. I'm like, or tickets? What do you mean time tickets? Like what? Like it seemed weird that like they like that kind of a place would have a some kind of a ride reservation system.
And even though the kills in this one are not the most elaborate, for some reason I always like these. And maybe again, this one might be because I think I saw this one in the theater, which is another reason I probably ranked it higher than a lot of people would. But there's a lot of kills in here that I really like the whole nail gun kill, the Bowflex kill in the gym. Again, it's weird because when I look back on them and I just like list them off, they don't seem that great. But for some reason, I just really loved them when I watched the movie. And even when I watched it back, like I was really entertained by them in a way I kind of wasn't in some of the other films. Which again, I don't really understand because on paper they're not that great.
Yeah. I mean, and there's some good sequences that don't end in kills too. Like they're saved, like when the sister gets caught on that by the horse. She gets dragged by multiple times. I think they stop and then she gets dragged. And there was a lot of intense sequences in this that were really cool that ended up not being in a kill. And
I think it did the best job of doing the fake out. Like, oh, you think you're going to be killed this way, but they're not. We're going to save them, and then they're going to be killed a different way. Like this one did a lot of that compared to the first two movies. They've all done it to some extent, but this one I felt like I noticed it more.
Yeah, and I think this is the only one in the series that had such an elaborate fake out at the end too. It had a big, huge fake out death at the end, and I don't think the other ones had that. I mean, they always have like that, like last like shot kind of a thing.
It was almost like the front of a Final Destination film tacked onto the end as well.
Right, because that could have easily been an opening, too. People have trauma on trains. There's some people that are afraid to go on those. I thought that was a great way to end it, too, because it was just like it was unexpected that they were going to have such a dramatic full-on set like that. Because actually, too, that was a lot more... I think it had more... Oh, no, I guess the first one had 3 survivors at the end. I was going to say, because this one had 3 survivors technically.
The kill count in this one's really not huge. I mean, if you look at it compared to I think part 4 had 11 kills in it, but this one is, again, it's weird because on paper, this one, I can see why people rank it lower because there's not that many kills. The kills that are there are not like super elaborate or great, but just something about the whole thing as a whole, it's really entertaining for me. I don't know why. And maybe the theme park stuff colors it, even though that's just one part of the movie. But for some reason, I just like the cast. I like the build up to the kills. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it really. Just a gut feeling there.
Yeah.
So I guess we should go through I'll let you go through some of the trivia here, Brian. There's a lot of trivia for this one, actually.
Yeah. Well, we'll try and just get some of the best ones. But here's the one that Tim kind of talked about. Already, I guess we'll say it says most of the roller coaster footage was filmed on the Corkscrew at Playland, part of the Pacific National Exhibition in Vancouver, British Columbia. Oh, so maybe that's why. Maybe there was like a little fair area to that park. I don't know. I've never been there. We should have had our expert, Dan, the T-shirt guy, who's been to this park.
Yes,
we should have had him come on.
Yeah.
But anyway, and it says the actual ride is much tamer and slower. Only contains the double corkscrew inversion compared to Devil's Flight, which contained multiple vertical loops and multiple corkscrew sections. In order to achieve such a roller coaster, CGI was applied to the roller coaster set, which contained a hydraulic setup that mimicked the actual roller coaster.
The last bit of trivia here I'll give, because I just think it's funny, is in Japan, the film was renamed Final Dead Coaster.
That's great. So the next one we have is, as Tim mentioned earlier, horribly named The Final Destination, because obviously we know, first of all, to ever say that for any horror movie is just... It's just bad because
ask Friday the 13th about the final chapter.
Yeah, because once you know that there's a good thing going here, you're not ending it anytime soon when they're still making money. But anyway, so this was in 2009, directed by David R. Ellis. It stars Bobby Campo as Nick, Chantel Van Santen as Laurie, Nick Zano as Hunt. He was pretty funny in it, Hunt. Haley Webb as Janet, Michael T. Williamson as George, Krista Allen as MILF/Samantha. Yes, that is the IMD thing. I did not come up with that on my own. Andrew Frischella as the mechanic. Justin Welborn as racist. They really went through characters' description names here well on this script, let me tell you. Stephanie Honor, I guess, as mechanic's girlfriend. Lara Grice as racist wife. Jackson Walker as cowboy. Phil Austin as MILF's husband. Who really named these characters? I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but yeah. So after a young man's premonition of a deadly race car crash helps save the lives of his peers, Death sets out to collect those who invaded their end.
This one seems to be lower ranked because of something you said earlier, Brian. How most people just think back to the opening scene and rank it accordingly, and I think this one's widely viewed as the worst opening death sequence. The race car thing,
Yeah.
which actually has happened before. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
totally implausible, but I don't remember when I saw this remembering it being that bad. When I rewatched it, it was kind of funny because aside from 3, this is the one I've probably seen the most in a row because I have the DVD. So I watched the movie, I watched the audio commentaries that were on it. So I had actually seen this one quite a bit and knew a lot about it. So originally I thought my ranking was going to be pretty high for this one, although when I watched it back, I kind of realized why people have ranked it so low. There's some kill scenes in here that I actually really like. Like I like the pool kill.
Yeah,
I like
that was funny.
I really like the car wash scene, which I thought was kind of unique. I kind of like the when the tank launches into the guy and like like impales him in the fence.
Oh yeah, and that was, remember, we should say this was the first one that went to 3D.
Yes.
And I watched this in 3D this time again. When I watched it, I don't think I saw this one in the theater in 3D, but I remember I think I missed it in the theater this time. But I did watch it. I did it. The home Blu-ray release actually was one of the last ones before 3D Blu-ray came out. So this one actually came with 2 pairs of glasses, so you could watch it in a traditional way. Yeah. So I actually, it was funny. I was watching on my little portable at the time, but it's still actually, the 3D works actually pretty good in this because there's a lot of cool sequences in 3D, and that, of course, that could have been why maybe this one it had some awkward things to it, because whenever you try and do something in 3D for the first time in a series, you're gonna want to make it 3D, and try and make stuff that works good for 3D more than works for the plot.
The other thing I didn't like about this one is a lot of the death scenes had a lot of CGI, and it was very noticeable, and that kind of turned me off a little bit. It just seemed more noticeable than in other ones. I think because of the 3D, they tried to emphasize it so much.
Yeah,
that you got to see a lot of CGI stuff. So that piece I didn't like. This one's hard for me to judge because it's not a great entry in the franchise, but I'm so familiar with it after watching the director's commentary and watching the effects sequence extras. It's almost like I became so familiar with it through the DVD extras that I feel like I like it more than a lot of other people do, only, again, because of that familiarity. So I don't know how much that is coloring my ranking of this, but there are some lame stuff. Like there's a weird, and this continues in 5 too, there's this weird obsession with racist. And there's like a real racist guy in this one and I get it, that they have to have somebody they can kill off that you don't care that they die. You're kind of like
you're almost like rooting for it. Yeah,
rooting for them to die. I can see you put them in there, but it's like they had one in this one, and then they repeat it in number 5. It just, I don't know, it's just weird. And then the other part of it that struck me as I was rewatching it is that some of the, I don't know, like the whole thing with the MILF, or they call her the mom, or the lady with the 2 kids, or the lady with the tampons, or whatever they want to call her. That whole thing just, I don't know, that whole character just seemed so extraneous. I mean, there was really no point to it other than to just add another body. And that's what I felt like this one suffered from. We already said this one had the highest death count, but a lot of those deaths were so extraneous to the plot that it was almost, I could see what they were trying to do. I could see they were trying to just add more body count and make a fun horror movie, but they were so extraneous to the plot. I just found it like, I don't know. It turned me off for some reason.
Well, and it's funny. This one was kind of giving you like deaths in like weird spots. Like technically they were going to try and set up a death at like a hair salon. I mean, it's like,
exactly. That whole thing, it just turned me off. I don't know.
And I'll tell you, it's what happened to her where, like a, like whatever, I guess a lawnmower kind of swung that rock and went through her eye. I've been like, you ever weed whack? That happens all the time. You get hit with little pebbles in the face.
Oh,
like
yeah.
So
there's
it's
been
like
people killed by running over nails in a lawnmower.
Yeah, and like stuff like that. So it's like it's like it's something that can happen, which is what's crazy. But like, I mean, the odds of, I guess, maybe that way is it. But like, I know you're supposed to. They say recommend if you're gonna weed whack or doing something like that, you're supposed to wear some sort of eye protective gear. But I mean, she was just walking outside, I mean, she's not going to expect it. I mean, I felt bad because she's a likable, like, actress, but like, yeah, like her character in this was kind of annoying, it's like, but you didn't like want her to die necessarily. She just didn't need to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This one's a weird one because there's elements of this one I really liked. Like I like the whole ending thing with the explosion in the movie theater. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, and imagine how much that must have been cool as in a theater in 3D. When you're already in a theater and you're 3D and you get all that.
Yeah.
It's like
I like that whole concept. There's nothing I could point to in this movie and say this sucked. Like there's a lot of it I liked. It's just, again, when I rank these movies, I rank them as a whole, and it's just like a gut feeling of what I thought of the movie as a whole. And this one, for some reason, there's things about it that just fall flat to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
and apparently it does for other people. I'm not crazy because a lot of this one was
the lowest ranked.
Lowest ranked on IMDb. Is by far the most unanimously lowest ranked. When you see the different people ranking, they almost always put 4 at the bottom.
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised at my ranking. It's towards the bottom, but like it's not. Here's a spoiler alert: it's not the worst on my list. So we'll see that. But
yeah,
so I guess we'll just go to the trivia for this one. This is kind of funny because this starts a trend with another trivia for Final Destination 5. So Ashley Tisdale auditioned for the part of Nadia, but lost it to Stephanie Honor, I don't know. And then, but it says Tisdale also auditioned for the part in Final Destination 3 and didn't get it.
Oh.
So yeah. But actually, I'll just skip ahead to this trivia for part 5 because she also auditioned for the role of Candace Hooper in part 5 and didn't get it. Will somebody give Ashley Tisdale a Final Destination movie? There's a new one coming out. Could you cast her? She's not a bad actress. Just get her in there. I mean, how? Like, what didn't she have that couldn't get her into a Final Destination movie, though? Seriously.
Oh man,
I don't get it, but I think that's kind of funny. But anyway, so I guess we'll move on to Final Destination 5.
Yeah, so this is the one I had thought I had seen, and then I start watching it. I'm like, I don't remember any of this. This one was from 2011. Apparently, it's one I had meant to see and then just never got around to. Apparently, it's so weird. Directed by Stephen Quayle, starring Nicholas D'Agosto as Sam, Emma Bell as Molly, Miles Fisher as Peter Friedkin, Ellen Rowe as Candace Hooper. You could tell that these names are based off of horror directors. Jacqueline McInnes Wood as Olivia Castle, P.J. Byrne as Isaac, Arlen Escarpella as Nathan, David Kirchner as Dennis, Courtney B.
Vance. Keckner. That's David Keckner.
Oh, God.
Remember from SNL?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. I just mind blanked. Yes, of course, David Keckner. Courtney B. Vance as Agent Block, Brent State as Roy, and Tony Todd as Bloodworth.
Yes, he's back. Well, actually, he was technically in 3 by voice only.
Yeah. So, survivors of a suspension bridge collapse learn there's no way you can cheat death. This one features the longest opening disaster out of all 5 films, skipping down to the trivia. And I was texting Brian. I was texting Brian while I was watching this because for some reason, this movie felt so interminably slow. I think the reason it started off bad for me because it goes about 5 or 6 minutes at least just setting up characters. Like most of the other films in the series start off with the kill sequence fairly quickly. This one takes its time getting to the suspension bridge sequence. And then when the bridge sequence happens, it goes on for, seems like forever. It's really like just under 5 minutes, but it seems like forever. So I was already like in a bad mood watching this. I was already kind of turned off by it, which probably didn't help when I was watching it. But I mean, granted, I just probably was not in the mood to watch this one. I was getting kind of burned out by this point.
I actually liked this opening scene though, this disaster. I didn't want to tell you then because I thought it was actually really well done. They get a good sense of height, and bridges kind of like, especially that kind of bridge that was featured in that, where there's not a lot of like stanchions underneath, I guess, things holding it up, and it's just one of those long, like kind of like almost like a one-piece bridge, like something like that. For some reason, it just it kind of freaked me out because think about like. And I, obviously, if you saw any footage from when San Francisco had that big earthquake, back in, was it 87? Well, the big one during the World Series.
Yeah. I remember that.
And then you saw when the Bay Bridge had that piece that collapsed down, and then that there was a portion of the Nimitz Freeway out there which collapsed onto a bunch of cars. A lot of people were killed on that. So it's like, when you see, something like that could actually happen. Like out of all the, granted, if you want to think about it, almost in every Final Destination movie, all these things could. Like the main openings could happen.
Yes,
definitely. But this one is actually one of my favorite ones because I think it really actually kind of there is something I'm actually frightened of in that case. If that ever happened and you're trapped on a bridge, we're just going over a bridge, I'm okay. But whenever you're caught in traffic or going slow, I'm like, okay, let's kind of get over this bridge. And it's funny because I'm not really big on heights, even though I'll go on any roller coaster or ride, no matter how tall it is. But I feel like something, I know there's probably this false sense of security. Well, I'm in a ride, so nothing could happen kind of thing. But when you're in your own car, you're walking or something, I'm like, okay, no one safety checked my feet here, and I am a klutz, so there's a good chance I could trip and fall. And, so it's but then if I'm in a car, same thing, I'm like, okay, I'm in control of this. It's not automated in any way, So to me, it's like that sequence actually was definitely out of one of the more frightening ones. Same with the plane one. There's the same reason because it's this out of control feeling kind of a thing where, I feel like something happens and you really can't do anything about it. But
the thing I really liked about this one, and by the way, guys, we're going to spoil the ending of this one. So if you have not seen Final Destination 5, please go see it before you listen to the rest of this episode because the ending is so important to this movie. But the other thing I liked about this one is that even though it's only 2 years later, removed from Final Destination 4, in a way it kind of feels like a restart of the franchise.
Right.
It really tries to reset and go back to a darker tone, which I think was even a trivia statement that they went for a darker tone more similar to the first film than the fourth film, which was really kind of getting a little comedic. And I thought that was needed. It almost felt like a reboot of the series, even though it was only 2 years after the last sequel. And I like that part about it, and I like that they filled it with Easter eggs to Final Destination fans. There's a lot of little things here that I even picked up on, even without looking at trivia, that I was like, oh, if you're a Final Destination fan of this series, you're going to know exactly what that is and why they put that in there. And I did like those little things about it. As far as the death sequences in this one,
there's one I cannot. Oh my god! There's a couple obviously that freak me out. You can imagine the two that freak me out the most. I'm sure. Well, if you know me,
go ahead and tell them though, because I'm gonna look up some of these while you're talking.
Okay, well, of course, the one with the eye. Because I'm already terrified of laser surgery to begin with. Not that I think that will happen, but still, and you know me, anything with eyes, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, that one was pretty
creepy.
Rough, yeah.
And then the one that I even. Watching it again, I cringe. I get tense watching it. Is the one with the gymnastics, because
that was a great one.
Because that it just that always freaks me out. Even when I'm watching normal gymnastics on TV, during the Olympics or something, or if I'm watching, I just it's I'm always so nervous because I'm like, oh my god, if you fall, you land wrong, you're gonna break your neck, and that's just a fear I have. So I'm to me, just watching that and knowing oh my god, oh please, there's gonna be a gymnastics death here. I'm watching this thing, I'm this is and then they do such a good job with the tension of how many times she avoids that freaking little screw on the thing.
Oh
and
gosh,
I'm
freaked me
oh
out.
my god, I'm wow, this is. They do a good job in this movie of really delaying, what's about to happen, and it's just and that one, it's she literally misses it 6 or 7 times, and she's doing that little hop right past it, and I'm oh my god, see, I in my of course they faked you out because you thought she was gonna step on it and tumble somehow, and something was gonna happen into the fan or something, but. Of course, they switch it that the other gymnast steps on it. She falls over, knocks the powder. The other one goes and ends up in a crumpled mess. And I love when they go, get 911. I'm
yeah, I think 911's not going to help
you need to put her together first. Her arms are detached, basically. She's crumpled backwards. And
my daughter does gymnastics, so I was cringing the whole time.
Oh my god, yeah. I Like I don't envy you, Tim, to watch those things because I get so tense. I mean, even like just any kind of injury, like an ankle sprain and that. Oh, can she get another sport, Tim? I don't know.
Actually, she's given up gymnastics, so
that's
she's
good,
fine.
good.
She's back to soccer now. But
Yeah, there you go. It's soccer. I mean, not that you can't get hurt in soccer, but at least it's a little
less dangerous,
less tension
well,
there.
This is the perfect example of a time when we say watching these back to back can be either a good thing or a bad thing. And I think in this instance, watching 4 and then watching 5 back to back was a bad thing for me because 4, as you remember, had the most deaths of the series. And while they weren't all great, there was a lot of them. So it seemed like there was always something going on. This movie is much slower paced, has a much lower death count. And to me, that equated to I'm bored. So coming right off of 4, even though we ranked that one very low, there was a lot of stuff going on at least. Whereas this one was so slow paced, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, is there ever going to be anything happening? Because there's not a lot of kills. The kills that are there are not super elaborate. Like it really kind of goes back to the first one in terms of kind of simplifying everything. So aside from the opening sequence, of course. So I was sitting here for most of this movie, like kind of like, I don't like this. Like this is just boring. I don't know. It's so slow paced. However, the ending of this movie is fan-freaking-tastic. Like it literally saves the entire movie because there's a huge, huge twist. And like I said, I'm going to spoil this. So if you don't want to hear it, skip ahead. But we find out in this movie that this is actually a prequel to the first Final Destination film, and the flight they get on at the end to Paris is Flight 180 from the first film. And when that happened, it's like, oh my gosh. Now, I kind of already had spoiled this for myself. I had at some point in time, I had read that this was a prequel. But for some reason, it still like made an impact on me. Even though I kind of knew it in the back of my mind, like actually seeing it was still impressive to me. Like I thought it was brilliant.
It blew me away when I remember watching this for the first time and I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I remember it was like, because I was like, I kind of probably the first time I saw it, I was kind of like you, where I'm like, all right, here, same old Final Destination. Okay. Great opening sequence. Now here's a death, here's a fake out, death, fake. Yeah. But then when that happened, it seemed to validate the entire movie, and like it's sometimes when a movie is wrapped correctly, where there's a great beginning and a great ending, and the middle's not so hot. As long as you have that powerful ending that can tie it all together, it sometimes forgives the middle. And you can remember it now as a good movie. And this one, I think, is what did that. And that's why it's up higher in the rankings than it probably should be if you look at it like overall. But it's like that ending, I remember, got me like so giddy because of like because I loved the first one so much. And the fact that there were so many clues basically that were kind of teasing this. That if you had a sharp eye, you might have figured it out. Although I don't know if you would have necessarily figured out how they were going to exactly end it. But you may have been able to figure out that it did take place before the events of it. Because think about it. Here's one. Every other movie, they're looking up stuff that says, oh, well, this actually happened. One guy got off the flight. No reference to that. No prior history. They usually do that. And there's just a prior history. I mean, granted, there's one that Tim noticed. He said, "How come Tony Todd looked the same age as he did? He should have looked younger, technically." Yeah. But I'm like, well, that's too obvious of a tip-off. People would have said, "Why did they de-age him?"
Right.
But
yeah.
But then there's like they said that it's based if you look at the timing of the phones. Like the guy had that StarTAC phone.
And I love that they had little pop culture references. Like they had a reference to The Sixth Sense, I See Dead People.
Right, Lisa Loeb.
Lisa Loeb. So there's a lot of things that would have been current at the time of right before the first movie that were not at all current when this movie took place. Or in 2011. So it's kind of, if you were really sharp, you might have picked up on that. Which I'm not sharp, so I would have never. But you wouldn't think.
But the thing is, you wouldn't think that at the time.
Yeah,
because you're thinking
they're just making '90s references.
Yeah, when it's funny, what this kind of does is then it kind of does validate the title for the fourth one. because that was the last one in time.
You're right.
In time.
I never thought about that.
but yeah, there's just and it's funny because there were total like what's funny is they had a whole there's a trivia. I guess we could jump down to it real quick. It says when Nathan brings beer into the office, behind Sam is a model of an airplane, a truck, and a race car. It says these are references to Final Destination 2, and The Final Destination. And on Olivia's desk, there's a picture of the Devil's Flight roller coaster from Final Destination 3. It says, since it's revealed to be a prequel, it means that all the events of the previous film are foreshadowed in this scene, which is pretty interesting. That they actually kind of did that to kind of maybe throw you off, but if you think about it, the way this movie is about all these foreshadowings and all these visions and premonitions, it's all there right in that office.
Yeah, it's fine. That's one thing I actually really did like about this movie is, despite the slow pace, I still felt like it provided a lot of fan service throughout. Like, I always get the feeling it was being respectful of the series and of the fans of the series. I just felt like, and I can't point to any specific one thing, but as I was watching it, I was picking up on little things here and there that just felt like it was fan service. Not in a bad way. Usually fan service seems bad, but I don't mean that in a negative connotation in this case. I feel like it was... they were put in there to really make fans happy. So this one was weird. I went through a roller coaster, quote unquote, of emotions through this one. Like, it started off, I was really pissed off at it. I didn't like it at all. I was bored through the middle, and then like the end, I was like, oh my god, this was awesome. So it's kind of a weird thing here. So I guess, Brian, we'll go to our rankings, and I'm going to tell you guys right up front, I am probably the least happy with my rankings with this franchise than I am any of the other ones we've done under the Summer Slaycation. I don't necessarily know if I agree with my own rankings, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But it's just the way sometimes when you only have 5 films in the series, there's going to be films that get bumped higher for some reason than you really want them to, and there's going to be films that get bumped lower for some reason than you really want them to, just because there's only so many slots to fill. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was almost forced into this ranking that I'm not super happy with. But I'll give you my reasons. Yeah, and I kind of think the same, where it's like there's some rankings where until I saw them all this time, it might have changed. Like, if you would have asked me before I watched them all again, I would have had a different ranking, almost guaranteed, than I have now. But it's been rewatching them again actually changed my rankings. Yeah, I don't know. This one, I'm going to go ahead and give you my ranking, but I'm not super happy with it. Okay, so number 1, Final Destination 3. The reason I put this one at number 1 is I just find it the most entertaining of all of the films. And I know it doesn't bring anything to the table. I know it doesn't really have a huge death count. I know the kills aren't exactly the best, but the opening sequence is by far my favorite. And I don't know why. I just find this movie entertaining. It's the one I watch the most out of the whole series. And I can't explain it. So I have to give it number 1 just because gut feeling, that was my most entertaining. Follow that up with Final Destination 1, which I thought was... It's dark, it's smart, it started the origin. I can't put it any lower than number 2. There's no way I could put it any lower. If you ask me on any given day, I could probably argue that it should be the number 1 spot. So I could easily flip those. Number 3, this one's going to be the controversy between me and Brian, because I put Final Destination 2, and I'm not super happy with where this one is. But because this one is so integral to the mythos of the Final Destination series, and it returns Ali Larter, I just felt like putting it any lower. I didn't feel comfortable putting it any lower on the list. I could not put it ahead of 3 or 1 because I actually like those movies, but I felt like it somehow deserved to be higher in the ranking than 4 and 5, which were really just copy paste of the franchise. I mean, out of the whole franchise, 2 actually probably does more in terms of adding to the mythos than any other movie in the franchise, and that's why I felt like it had to be a little high. That's interesting. I mean, that's a good point, though. Yeah, the last two were 4 and 5, and originally I was going to rank 4 above 5 because, again, the familiarity thing. I think 4 is faster paced. I think it's more entertaining, quote unquote, in general. But the superb, brilliant ending of 5, the way it does its fan service and ties into the series, the way it kind of goes back to a darker element from the first film, all of that combined, when I looked back on it, I was like, I have to rank it above 4 because it really, even though it's not my favorite of the series in terms of entertainment, the stuff that it did I thought was really cool. So, and the opening sequence was really good too. So that one had to go above 4. 4 kind of deserves its final ranking because I think everybody kind of agrees that's the worst in the series. Although I will say, I by no means dislike Final Destination 4. I actually really like a lot of it. And I think this series, like I said at the front before we even went into the Summer Slaycation, I don't think this series has a bad film in it. I'm kind of forced into these rankings to put a film at the bottom, but I actually enjoy every one of these movies.
Yeah.
So there we go.
This is one of those like tough ones where I think it's like everyone's gonna kind of like, it makes sense that they're all across the board in terms of the rankings, but so mine's a little different. So my first one I have is the original, just because, I always kind of default. That's most of the times the original to me is going to be kind of has to lose its first spot. It automatically starts there and has to lose it. And I don't think this one did because it was so good and I loved it so much and I've seen it so many times. I remember the impact it had on me in the theater. I remember the impact it had on horror films in general, and the fact that it was it came out and it set a mythos and it pretty much stuck with it for most of the series, and it was just and plus it had the fact that Tony Todd, I remember in the trailer, looked like he was gonna be more of it, but he ended up being only in a small part, but his small part was so impactful. So yeah, the first one just always is just one of my favorites overall in horror movies. So it's pretty much it basically it started at 1 and it stayed there no matter what. Now the second one I have is 3, and 3 could have easily been my favorite at the time if 1 didn't exist, if that makes sense. Because I love 3 so much because it just had everything. Because it had almost everything about 1. Except it being introducing me to the series, that, and I think that's the only difference. And of course, I love the roller coaster things. I love the characters in this. I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. So it's got so many things that I love about it, and it had the tag at the end where it had almost a new opening at the end. I just thought this one it's just one of the what. I'd almost say that you could easily if you want to if you had to pick 2 and to show people out of the whole group, I'd say 1 and 3. You can 1 and 3. And I know you just said how sure. Important 2 was with the mythos, but in my mind I would be able to skip 2 and be okay. Just because, and it's just this time, I swear I used to not have any problem with 2. I just know what it was kind of this time I had a problem with 2, but
well, it's kind of funny because 2 introduces some mythos that wasn't necessary, as you say. So even though it did introduce it, you're right. It is skippable because it doesn't really matter in the rest of the series.
Yeah, and I think that's why. And it's this time, I know for some reason this time it just irked me. It things about that movie irked me, and it shouldn't have irked me as much because, like I said, I like AJ Cook. Just a big fan of hers from Criminal Minds. I don't know really what it was, but this time just watching it was, to me, I just didn't enjoy it this time. But anyway, we'll get to where that is. So the next one ranked for 3 number is Final Destination 5 for all the reasons pretty much Tim said and how we talked about it earlier. The ending twist to me was such a wow moment for me when I watched it in a series that when you're at part 5 of a series and you can still get that wow moment, that deserves extra praise for a movie, I think. And the fact that it was able to do that, and it had one of my, granted, probably it wasn't my favorite opening sequence because I still think that would be 3, but 5, but the 5th, but that bridge sequence was something that truly terrifies me in real life, so I could really be like, I really just felt tense through that sequence, and I thought it was well done too. It was like, and even when like like one sequence, I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about it, but one part I liked particularly is when you're like, well, why don't they just jump off? It's high, but there's a good chance you'll survive in that water if you jump right. And the one girl falls, and you're like, oh, she's okay, and then a car comes and plummets and squashes her in the thing. So I'm like,
I guess it depends on how high it was, because otherwise, it'd be,
I'm like, boy, they didn't give you any safety net on this thing. It's like, but most of the time, if falling from that height into water, they say it's like, it's like almost like hitting like concrete. But I mean, at that point, you're gonna fall anyway. Maybe jump on your own terms might be the way to go. Like, I don't know, I might have like hung over the edge and dropped or something at that point if I didn't see any kind of way to get out. I mean, that would be my choice. I mean, rather than get like burned or crushed or something like. But anyway, I digress. But so that's where that one is for 3 for me. I just loved overall the whole the movie in general. Then the fourth one I have actually as The Final Destination, or 4, and I mean, that one, it's like, I think it had so many deaths in it, and it was just had some fun. Really a lot of fun moments to it in the deaths, like the one guy that oh my god, I forgot his character's name. Hunt. He was he was a funny character that you like, you didn't really like him, but he entertained you, kind of a thing. So his sequences were pretty funny. And then the final one is like I said before, I watched it this time again. I would not have expected 2 to be down there. I would have thought it would have been 1, 3, 2, 5, 4. It would have been my ranking probably previously. But for some reason this time I watched 2, I just did not enjoy it. And I just found, maybe I used to watch it so many times, because I think this one had like the original DVD had like that pick a death sequence. You could change things. I think the third one had it too. Yeah. But and I remember I think I watched it on the original DVD a lot, and maybe I don't know. Maybe then I just was so caught up in the series, and now watching it from after not seeing it in a while. But I don't know. It seems like a lot of things irked me. Dialogue irked me. The subplots irked me. That whole Ali Larder coming back, like, cliche, and like, it's, I don't know. And like they told you that one line, remember? I say Subway, get up to the high five. Like, I'm just like, oh.
Well, like I said, I'm almost mad that I had to put it at 3, which is weird. Like, I'm the one that put it there, and I almost feel like my hand was forced, and I don't feel like it deserves to be 3. So I don't in any way like contradict your ranking there, because it's from an entertainment perspective, I probably was like the least entertained by it.
Yeah, I just had a lot of like dull like moments that didn't need to be there. There was too many like things that they added that they didn't need to, and that's why I'm like, almost like you could skip 2 and be okay, and still get the whole series. And when a movie can be skipped to forward a narrative, that shows that there's a problem.
Well, what's weird, like I said, there's a lot of people that rank this one high, if not the best in the series.
I don't get it.
So, it's weird. I mean, these rankings are crazy all over the place. It's really fascinating. But that to me, that just shows the series is good. It shows that there's no film you can point to, except maybe in this case, possibly 4, and say, that's the worst film, or that's the best film. I mean, a lot of franchises, you can definitely say that fairly easily, and then the rest are kind of somewhere in the middle. But this one is just, I think it's a testament to the strength of the series.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, so let's get to our beer pairing this week, which I don't know, it just struck me as funny because it's such a simple beer pairing.
The beer is named Death, and it's from Rivertown Brewing Company from Lachlan, Ohio. It's 12%. Wow. That's pretty strong. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like, what better beer for this series, though, is Death? Yeah. I mean, we had Final Destination and Death were the 2 beer pairings.
That's great.
I mean, that could have been any better. So that's the description. It's a Russian Imperial Stout brewed with Jolokia peppers. So I think is that the scorpion peppers, or is that the ghost peppers? I think that's the ghost peppers.
I have no idea.
I think that's a ghost pepper. And it's roasty, rich heat. So that's like a hot, spicy Imperial Stout, which I need to get my hands on, I think. That sounds good.
That sounds crazy, yeah. Yeah.
So
well, that's good.
yeah, so that's at least we got a second beer pairing for that. So I managed. It was pretty good this year. I got 2 beer pairings for each Slaycation series. So
And it's kind of fitting, based on our
I
fan
know.
topic foo question, that we talked about beer so much in this episode, because David McHugh comes through again, Horror Mailman on Twitter. His question is, why did you decide to do the beer pairing? And Brian, I don't remember who originally came up with the beer pairing idea, but I will say, in my mind, I know that I used to be a big fan of AMC's Dinner and a Movie. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, so the AMC would do a dinner and a movie thing where they would show a movie, but then in between they would like give you a dinner idea to pair with it. And I always loved that idea. And when we did the beer pairing, I think that was always in the back of my mind of this would be kind of like AMC's Dinner and a Movie. That was one of my inspirations for it.
I kind of remember suggesting it, but I don't know if it was just we were just discussing fun things. But I do know, I think one of the reasons is, and it was funny too, because we spent the whole first chop, or so pseudo first chop, about talking about beer. So obviously it's very important to us. But I think one of the reasons why maybe this was a subconscious decision, maybe it was a conscious decision, but one of our first memories, if you think about it, when we met, was one of the coolest things that we did. Not only did we discover our mutual love of coasters, but and then we discussed horror movies. But that first night we all hung out at Cedar Point. We went to that brews and barbecue festival.
Yes, that was so
for
cool.
dinner. And I remember we realized that we're all huge beer fans too. And I remember I got you into that Krabby's ginger beer that night. We were trying all the different beers, and we went back the second night. It was so much, and then so it always became a thing where. I mean, if you remember too, the next meetup we all had was the Dollywood meetup, where we all decided to kind of get to right, because when Cedar Point was that one, and then it was Dollywood was the year later, right? So the next trip. And remember, we did the beer swap amongst all our Slack group, and we stopped. You, me, and Kev were at the Mellow Mushroom we tried the Wicked Weed IPA.
Yeah.
So beers has just been always a part of, I think, from our friendship we started. It's just one of the things we've always sought out. We've talked about along with horror movies and roller coasters. So it's, I think it was almost a natural, I think we just must have probably just almost, like I said, subconsciously together just realized, well, beer has to be a part of this podcast.
Yeah, and I remember when we were thinking of doing the podcast, we obviously knew there were a ton of horror podcasts out there, and we were trying to think of ways to differentiate ourselves. And I think we had discussed the beer pairing might be a good way, something fun, like because we were thinking of segments. How do we, what segments do we do? I mean, the original plans for this podcast were so far removed from what they are now. I think we had decided. I think originally we were going to do a top 100 horror movies list and just do each film on there and like quit after 100. I think it was one idea. If you go back and listen to like our early episodes, they have a much different format. Not a huge difference, but they were quite a bit different in terms of. I don't think we had a game or anything at the end. We used to, obviously not too long ago, we removed the dismemberment and put that to a monthly. That was a big change. So the podcast has evolved. But the beer pairing has always stayed constant because that was one of our very, very first ideas that we knew just kind of had to be in there. Brian, how did you get started in beer? Because for me, like craft beer, because for me, I can remember exactly when I started, and it was the Sierra Nevada holiday beer. And I'm just like blanking now on what that thing's called. The Celebration IPA.
Celebration, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, well, God, what a IPA to start out on, because that thing is hop. Those things are hoppy as hell, which, a lot of people don't like IPAs. Like Olivia doesn't like IPAs because she doesn't like hoppiness. But that was how I first got introduced to it. And I can't even remember who got me to try that. Now I can't really remember who introduced me to it, but like getting into that was when I first realized, hey, there's stuff besides Bud Light and Coors and Yingling, and I just, oh my God, there's these crazy other beers out there. And so I used to buy the Celebration Ale every year, and from there it just kind of slowly evolved. And then I started meeting people that were really big into beer, like coworkers, and then of course you and some of the other coaster people, and that like super like exploded my taste horizons for various beers and stuff, and I've just kind of gone on from there. So it's kind of funny looking back at like everybody starts somewhere. You start off kind of small, and then I look back at stuff I used to drink and go, I've never touched that. Not that I'm a beer snob, but you look back and you go, oh my God, I can't believe I actually ordered that.
Yeah, I'm a beer snob now.
Yeah, you just evolve over time. One of the funniest things I ever remember, Brian, and you'll remember this, is when we were at Myrtle Beach to ride Swamp Fox. And we went over to
Swamp Fox.
And we went over to that restaurant, the Land Shark place.
Oh yeah.
And like we were all sitting around looking at the menu, and like they had like 4 beers, like you could get Land Shark, or you could get like some domestics, and we're all sitting there like trying to figure out which beer to order because we didn't really want to order any of them, and we just kept all like staring at the menu as if somehow magically they would start selling craft beers,
like real beer, yeah,
like a real beer, and we're just all sitting there in awkward silence.
Yeah, well, and I know Julie had made her decision. She is like, "There's no way I'm ordering a beer from here," and she loves beer, and she's
that's so funny.
Yeah, not to mention that they were. I think they even were not like the kindest people there at that place anyway. But yeah, no, I think for me, I was so. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you said, because now I am like, I have to say, I am like a terrible beer snob. I mean, so it's to the point of where like, so I used to start off like, I remember, and actually the funny thing is you said Bud Light, like there's some ingredient in Bud Light that makes me nauseous. I don't know what it is now, but there's something they must use, because I remember one time, the last time I had 3 Bud Lights, and this was years and years ago. But like we used it for a beer pong game, but I only realized I only had like 2.5 to 3 of them, and I got sick and threw up, but not a drunk throw up, like my stomach is turning throw up, like a food poisoning kind of deal. And I'm like, I said, and I noticed it, and I had it one other time after that, because I think it was at some kind of bar and there was nothing else, so I had it and I got queasy instantly again, and I'm like, there must be just something in this beer. So. But fast forward after that. But then we started going, when I really started going out, like I would drink, like we go out, I'd drink a Heineken or a Sam Adams, those, or like a Sierra Nevada. I would always have that. But then when I really discovered, we went to Croxley's, which is around us. We used to go after work. And one of my friends there from work, he's like, oh yeah, you got to try this beer. And it's like, I think it was like a Grimbergen or something. And I'm like, okay, let me try that. And I'm like, oh, I like this. And then I think I started trying, and then we had a Magic Hat number 9 I tried, and I said, oh, I like this one. And then I think one time someone brought one of my cousins brought something local from them. It was a Flying Dog, and I'm like, these are now basic. These are like almost the low-level craft beers now.
Right,
now there's like the higher ones. And then it was when Julie and I got together that I realized she was like really, she really loves her IPAs, so she's super into and she was like, oh yeah, no, she'll like literally say, I don't want to drink a beer if there's not a beer that's good, like on the menu, like, and like that day was the perfect example. Like I looked at her, I saw her face, I'm like, she's not going to order anything. There's just no way.
I've actually reached that point. Yeah, because I don't want to pay beer prices for a beer I'm not going to really enjoy that I could just grab it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Why would you do that? Especially when like you go to a baseball game or something and they'll charge you like $12 for a Coors. I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, I am not paying. I paid $12 a can for one can of beer, like at a beverage place, because of just, and it's like, it's a small one. I granted the $12 Bud Lights are like, how tall, at a ball game, but still, it's like I'd rather go without than to just buy it for the sake.
See, I have reached that level. I think I'm not like a huge beer snob. Like, if somebody came over and offered me a beer and it was something like just plain, I would drink it. Like, I'm not gonna turn my nose up at that, but I am to the beer snob level that I'm not gonna pay money over for an inferior beer. Like you said, I'm almost like July. I'd rather just go without. Yeah, because I'm not going to pay those beer prices.
Well, you know what's bad? And this is even like Julie doesn't get this bad with this. It's sad. I become like a brewery snob, and what I mean by that is like when I'm at a brewery, like the brewery types I prefer are the ones where I could see that people are there to enjoy, like really like try beers and enjoy beers, and the brewers are there or behind or like into beers. But then there's like even like there's a couple of breweries I've been to where like I could see people just go there because they think it's cool to go to a brewery, and I like give them like this like look. I'm like, you don't really like the beer. You don't appreciate this beer. You're just here because it looks cool on Instagram or something.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
yeah.
I get so bad. And Julie's like, they just want to come and enjoy themselves. I said, but this is beer. This is good quality craft beer. These guys are, these are brewing it to try and really like test your palate, and these people are just treating it like a bar.
You're not appreciating it enough.
I know, it's terrible. I gotten so bad with that. It's terrible. Like that's why it's like even my certain breweries I like because of they seem to have like the brewers like totally want to make like a real beer like that. I love these like at North Fork. Oh, and that's the thing. I never finished the story with that because we went into the beers I had. So when I called up to do the curbside pickup this last time, what they do is, I ordered online and then you show up and then you call. As soon as I called, they're like, "Hello, Mr. Wackler," and I'm like, I was like about to say what, and he's like, "You're wondering why we know your name, right?" And I'm like, "Well, I just assumed because I've called I've been here like 6 times this year to make pickups like this." He's like, "Oh, we got caller ID now," so I'm like, okay. He's like, "You outside?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll be right out," and they're just really cool, and it's
awesome.
like. And they make like fun beers, and they don't it's not the same old stuff. And they have a good vibe. It's like in this old little building that almost looks like an old firehouse kind of thing. And it's like, I like those kind of things. And but like when there's breweries that almost like just resemble a bar, I could go to a bar and I have no problem going to a bar, a craft beer bar. But it's a craft beer bar. But when I go to a brewery, I expect something else, like a tasting room at a brewery. Like, I don't know if you've ever, it's funny because this is one of the craft beers I do enjoy from time to time. I like number 9 from them, and that's Magic Hat.
Yeah.
But you go to their brewery, it's like the Disneyland of brewery. It's like, you go in there and there's like 8 million things of merchandise, and the bar there is like packed at the end to try and get these things, and they have all this token system, and it's so busy you can hardly get in. And then they have this like line where they'll give you a tour, and it almost looks like a queue line, like lined up for like at a theme park. And I'm like, this is like a theme park of breweries, which you think I would love, but I'm like, but I can't taste the beer. I can't sit and enjoy the beer here, and it's like that's why like I still think my favorite, like there's so many of my breweries that are out there that are at the top of my list, but like Gray Sail, I love the way their brewery's set up. It's like in the backyard. They have this big backyard, and it's in like a colonial house, and they have an outdoor pizza oven that they cook pizza on, and you have like you can bring board games out to all the picnic tables in this giant backyard. And I'm like, see, this is what I like. This is the kind of beer
like it's not
even
so corporate, like
right.
Some of them are like so corporate, like you could tell they're just catering to tourists.
Right? Yeah, and I mean their families there, but like which you would say, oh, no, I don't mind like. Because of course you could bring little kids to the breweries if they're behaved and they want to go, if you're a family and you can't go there. And this is what I like because they make it so that it's like the whole family can enjoy this brewery, and that's their thing. And it's like, so it's great. It doesn't become like a frat house bar, that's where I don't like it, when it becomes like too much like a bar. If I want to go to a bar, I'll go to a bar. If I want to go to a brewery, I'm going to a brewery. There's a difference to me. And another one that's one of my, like I think I raved about this one, my Vermont trip with that Alchemist brewery, where you go in there and you can either get the tour or you literally just get unlimited samples of 3 different beers that they have on draft, and you could just go hang out and keep going back. And oh my god, I love that brewery. They are the greatest bunch of people there. They like everything they have is like sustainable. They just and like you could like get right up and close and watch the cans, which will have you mesmerized if you just watch their canning process. You'll sit there. I mean, after a few, you probably might not move for a while because you're so tight. You're starting to get a good buzz because their beers are pretty heavy, and they have an amazing brewery tour. And it's like that's, I love, I got really into the love of beer and the process itself and the breweries. So it's like there's nothing. Julie and I have a ball like when we go on trips, like when we make like breweries as like full on stops and stuff.
Well, here's the thing that I noticed, Brian. I haven't even told you this. So, Olivia and I have been spending a lot of time designing the new house because we're building. And we're actually going to the last meeting on Friday before they'll break ground on it, which is awesome. So we were looking back over what we had chosen for the style, because you have to pick out your floor, you have to pick out your walls, you have to pick out your backsplash, you have to pick out your your lights, everything. And she was like, "What would you call? Like, what did we pick out? Like, really, what did we pick out?" And I said, "Well, I really like it because it's like this kind of the flooring, the hardwood flooring is like almost kind of a rustic. Like, it's not one uniform plain color. Like, it's got different natural colors to it. It's just kind of got this rustic feel to it." I said, "I love the flooring because it just reminds me of kind of like a log cabin or something. It's like this rustic feel, but the house itself is modern. Like, the appliances are modern." And I said, and we have these lights, like we have these pendant lights that are coming down. We got some that are like seated glass. And I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know, I would almost call it like kind of like a modern industrial-ish. I don't really know how to describe it. And she was like, "Oh my God." She's like, "It's like a brewery." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "We decorated it sort of like a brewery." And I was like, "Oh my God," like she's actually right. Like, there's
That's
a lot
awesome.
a lot of breweries are in like like an old warehouse or a factory that they've converted over, but you see like that mix of like hardwood floors and like some brick, and then maybe like you got these kind of a little bit, I don't want to say old fashioned lights, but it's like a warm lighting, like with like pendant lights hanging down and stuff. And I was like, "Oh my God, like that's what this is." Like, I think subconsciously we were kind of going for that aesthetic. So I think, Brian, you're going to love our new house because it's like stepping into a brewery in a way.
Well, I will be happy then. Well, and you saw when we went on that Julie got obsessed with that clapback beer that you guys had.
Yeah.
So she's still like saying she's like she goes, "We got to ask Tim and see if he could send it to us." And I'm like, I said, "Well, it's probably not easy because remember we only found it at that one place, and like I don't even know if they make it anymore for all we know, because it could have been one of those like limited runs." So
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, let me know what it is. I'll take a look. We'll see if I can find it.
But yeah, it was clapback by that new Anthem place. Remember, and we went to the brewery and we didn't get to get to have it there because they didn't have it at that location.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll take a look for it. But yeah, so that's our long journey into beer talk. But that was a great question. It spawned some good discussion of our love for beer and, of course, our love for theme parks. And that's kind of the genesis of this entire podcast.
This was like the at some level got a lot of discussion on the origins of Civil Gore. What a good way to end the Summer Slaycation.
Yeah, exactly. So we will be back here next week. I think we have a good idea of what movie we're going to do, and we got another very special surprise we got a couple of big surprises coming up in terms of guests. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be getting really, I think this is going to kick off haunt season because I think Brian and I are ready to just get it started. I know it's only not even mid-September yet, but we're just gonna dive straight into Halloween. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun plans, and I've been working hard on the this year's horror challenge, which, believe it or not, we need to announce like almost in the next 2.5 weeks already.
Yeah,
we need to have that announced. And so basically it's going to be like it was. I can tell you this, it's going to be like last year, except with, I think, more possible challenges to get. But the thing is like you still have to, there's still that bonus for completing every one of them. So there's going to be more to try and get.
And I'm telling you, I've already looked through the challenges, and I think this year definitely tops last year in terms of just the uniqueness and fun of all the challenges. I think you guys are gonna have a blast.
A big shout out to Ken. Actually, Ken gave us a lot of those suggestions and came up with a lot of the good names, which I love. And there's going to be a couple holdovers from last year. There's some of the basic ones that are they're easy grabs to get, but it's still grabs nonetheless. So I carried over a couple, but most of them are all new.
Oh, and you guys know, so there's going to be no shortage of horror films to watch this season because Shudder's doing their 61 Days of Halloween.
Oh, right, yeah.
Netflix has just announced a slew of new horror titles coming for Halloween. So there's going to be plenty on the streaming services. Now we got new streaming services. We've got HBO Max. We've got Peacock. We got, all these other ones that we didn't have before. So I don't think there's going to be any difficulty in finding films to watch for this horror challenge or just to watch in general. And I plan on really, because because what else we have to do? I'm not traveling.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch the heck out of some horror movies this season for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I think for Halloween, I literally may do like a 24-hour like binge.
Yeah.
Since Halloween's on a Saturday, I may just wake up on Saturday morning, start watching all the way through till Sunday morning.
We're going to have, it's going to be, I mean, I was already looking at, there was a friend of mine that lives in LA, and she had posted that they had already started announcing their Halloween restrictions. And it was what you would expect. No trick-or-treating, no trunk-or-treating. I mean, it was basically Halloween's canceled. So I'm kind of going in with the mindset that there will be no quote-unquote Halloween in terms of haunts, in terms of trick-or-treating, all that stuff. So I'm trying to make my own fun and my own Halloween.
Yeah, and we have some plans for the podcast, too, that we're going to try and work on to try and special little bonus things.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try and make so Halloween may be canceled out in the real world, but in our podcast world, we're gonna keep it going as strong as ever.
Yeah, I think it might even be stronger this year because we're gonna just be dedicating more of our attention towards it because we're not gonna be dedicated to haunts and decorating and all that stuff. So we guys will see you back here next week. Thanks for tuning into our Summer Slaycation. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did making it, and we'll see you back here next week.
See ya.